Hey everybody, welcome back to theclinicaltrialsguru.com. Again, it's theclinicaltrialsguru.com. This question is going to be all about a certain type of study I've been seeing a lot of lately, and it's a study that I don't like, a lot of research clinics don't like, a lot of PIs don't like. Those are the phase 4 studies. They're also called real-world studies, or post-marketing studies, or natural setting studies. So the point of these studies is they already have FDA approval, they just want to collect more data, or they want to get doctors used to the fact that they're prescribing this med. They want to get them in the habit of prescribing this medication or whatever it is. It's no longer an IP, although technically if it's in a study it's still called an IP, but the study drug. They want to get doctors in the habit of writing prescriptions for it, and they also want to study different data points, whatever it may be. So there's a lot of these kind of studies out there right now in 2015 because sponsors, they're gearing up for a busy 2016. So I'm seeing a lot of feasibilities, a lot of CDAs for your more traditional trials like phase 1 through 3. But I think a lot of sponsors have been doing phase 4 post-marketing studies while they're waiting for their pipelines to fill up with more products that they can then put into the clinical trial pipeline, so to speak. So phase 4 studies come and go. You used to not see too many, then you would see a lot, then they would drop off again. It comes and goes in waves, and it's usually inversely related to the amount of traditional trials. So when the amount of traditional trials is relatively low, the amount of these phase 4 real-world post-marketing trials is high, and then vice versa. So right now we're seeing a lot of these phase 4 studies, and I'm turning them down left and right, and up and down and all over the place, because it's not worth doing for my sites, for most of my sites, which are established sites. They are worth doing for brand new investigators who need to get some experience under their belt and are gearing towards putting themselves in a position to capture more of the traditional trials when they come out. So now would be a perfect time if you're a brand new investigator, and there's tons of these phase 4 studies out there. Now would be a great time to do some of these trials. You're not going to make much money. As a matter of fact, this video is going to talk a little bit about some of the things, some of the procedures and the way these studies are run that can make these trials either super easy or way more complex than they should be. So the super easy, let's just get to the super easy studies. There's survey trials, so the idea is the PI is going to recruit patients from their own private practice who are already taking a certain medication, and they're going to have the patients fill out quality of life questionnaires about their meds that they're on, and that's it. Then that data gets recorded into a CRF, sponsor reviews it, that's it. They usually will pay the study participant like $50, sometimes nothing, but usually it's like $50, and the sponsor will usually pay the site or the investigator like maybe $800 for a patient when they complete. And they might have 4 visits where they have to fill out a bunch of surveys over the course of a month or over the course of 4 months. So we're not talking much money. What PIs can do, because usually these studies have very high enrollment numbers. They're looking for like thousands of patients. You can enroll a high volume of patients and make up for it. So let's say they're paying you $800 and you put 50 in there, and my math is not great, but I think it's 40 grand. So it's not bad. I mean, it's a quick way to make $40,000. Those are the easy phase 4 studies, okay? The more difficult phase 4 studies, the real world studies, the standard of care studies, where they involve more than just patients filling out quality of life surveys or satisfaction surveys, are actually where the sponsor will take it one step further and say, hey, we know you're a research site and you see your patients here and you're used to conducting visits at your site. We want you to get your patients, but then none of the procedures are done on the site. They're all done at their day program or at the hospital or at their other outpatient clinics. So we don't really want your research staff involved too much other than funneling the patients to these places and then supervising the nurses who will be trained by the sponsor to do this. So these kind of real world studies, we just turned down a couple because the sponsor refuses to allow any of the procedures to be done at the site. So there's like different tests they have to do. It'd be a lot easier and more feasible for many sites to do these procedures on site because they're used to doing these kind of things. And instead, the sponsor wants them to be done at day programs, at clinics, in a real world setting, not in a research setting, because what they really want is, other than getting the data, which they can get already, they want to get those staff members used to their drug, okay? Get in the habit of prescribing that drug, sort of like brainwashing in a way, although I wouldn't go that far, but they want to get them in the habit of doing that. I know a lot of sites turn down these studies. Yes, you can enroll high volume like you can in the survey studies, but the amount of work involved is a lot more, and usually the pay does not reflect the amount of work that is involved in these trials, which is why I've turned them down. There is one way that they could, and I say potentially could be more interesting if you reduce the amount of work the site has to do. The only way I would see that as being a possibility, and it might be a good thing for sponsors to implement, is, especially right now where there's a high supply of these kind of phase 4 studies, is to have some kind of virtual workspace like Intralinks. I use Intralinks, where they train, not the PI, they train the staff in the real world setting on how to use these tools and then upload the source documents themselves. Then the monitors can have access to the virtual workstations with very minimal involvement from the site. They'll only ask the site questions if there's queries or things like that, but the day-to-day grind of collecting source, entering it into a system, it's already done. It's done by the nurse. Now the issue is you got to compensate that person, but chances are they're already on the clock at their real world setting, so you may just throw them like some money on the side. That's a way this could work, and that's a way I think, I'm not seeing sponsors doing that, but I think that's a way they can get more sites to agree to do these kind of things. And the sponsors are going to probably learn the hard way that these studies, which should be easy, are a lot more challenging because they're not getting the sites that they want to do these trials, because they're making the protocol for these low-paying studies overly complex, and the amount of time is not consistent with the amount of work that needs to be done, or it's not reflective of the amount of work that needs to be done. So that's my only solution to that. Bottom line, in phase 4 studies, some are good, some are ugly, but just use common sense and figure out which one works for you. And if it seems like an ugly one, but they have a virtual workspace, it might work out, right? But I haven't seen too many of those, but maybe the sponsors or CROs watching can take some advice from me. I think that would reduce a lot of the friction between the sites and the real world setting places where the studies are actually going to be done. So yeah, hopefully this helps, this topic, maybe shed some light on phase 4 trials. And keep your questions coming in, dan@theclinicaltrialsguru.com. Stay tuned for next time. Make sure you subscribe and like, okay? Bye-bye.